You're listening to Just a Couple of Jerks with Paul Winstanley. Got a real treat for you this week. We've got the man who does the driver management tool himself, Maurice Daly. We talk about how his name's Maurice, not Maurice. Delve back into the past where he worked at a school and installed the internet for them, carrying it around in his back pocket. And we chat about how you learn about the things that you do wrong and put them right the next time you do them, i.e., learn from your mistakes. It's a really good chat, and I love the way at the end to bring Maurice back down to normality. Being a rockstar MVP, he had to dash off for his food because his wife was glaring at him. We'd been chatting too long. Enjoy this week's episode. Right, I saw you were doing your
Yeah,
patio
yeah. What have been up to?
decking.
I've actually taken a break from IT the past few days. Just I think
Just
everyone needs a break now and again, Paul. I mean, you know that as well.
that's what we call the weekend, isn't it?
Yeah, allegedly, but sometimes the weekends it's like just sneaking off to the room to get on the laptop to do stuff,
Yeah.
and then hours disappear. So it was nice to get out, and the weather's been thankfully good. Although in typical Irish fashion. The day after I paint everything at the back, it pours rain all night, and I think I'm gonna have to do it again. So
I was in wrecked it.
yeah, it didn't get time to really set in. So
Oh no.
uh,
But it's blended in with the fence, is it now?
yeah, it blended in with the fence while it was wet.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh dear.
my excuse is that was just a primer. That was all. So
Well, to be honest, it looked professionally done. So that for a first coat primer, pretty decent, really.
yeah, I was proud for all of half a day.
Yeah. So how long did it take you to do that then?
Only what, about 4 or 5 hours or something. I don't know. I lost track of time out the back. So
And the will to live.
no, it wasn't too bad. No, this time I managed to do the sensible thing and stick a quite large paintbrush on the end of a big long
Ah,
stick,
okay.
so I wasn't bent down on my hands and knees doing it, which
Yes.
I did before, and yeah, that's painful.
It's old age, yeah. Kicking
Yeah,
in, aches and pains.
afraid so. Like as my wife keeps reminding me since I turned 35 that 40 is approaching. And 40 is knocking on the door now in July. So um, I'm looking forward to that because then 50 will be approaching.
Yes. Tell me about it. Yeah. I've just been on a cycle actually. I went take advantage of the quietish roads. Obviously, it's London, so it's still fairly busy. But I went out to all the way into London on just where Tower Bridge is. But I avoided kind of going in, and I came back. But halfway up there, going up Old Kent Road, it's as classy as it is a monopoly. It's the cheapest road on monopoly, so it's pretty scuzzy as you go up there. Uh, but fairly quiet today. And I'm going up there and I'm thinking, I'm still going away from the house. And I'm thinking, oh God, I should have turned right earlier on because my legs are starting to go. And I'm only about 6, 7 miles into it at this point. Anyway, I've got back and I'm dead, absolutely dead. So if I fall asleep during this, it's purely because, old age. I mean, I've not been out much recently. I did the tour of Yorkshire last year, just 80 miles with my eldest, and that killed me. And that put me off. So I've only really been out twice since. So yeah, as I'm approaching 50, it gets harder, and hardly being out combined with all that, I'm shattered, mate. So prepare for some snoring. as we go along. Yeah. Well, thank you, Maurice Daly. I'm going to pronounce your name correctly. It's not Maurice, it's Maurice Daly. Thanks for joining me for just a couple of jerks.
Yeah, thanks very much, Paul, for the invitation.
Yeah. Um, as you're aware, this is pretty much a podcast where we try and avoid chatting too much about IT, but we like to go into your career, get a feel for you as a person, that sort of thing. But the idea is that we get put on this pedestal as kind of experts, rock stars, MVP rock stars, wherever it is we're classed as in the field, and we have these problems, these struggles day to day as we're working. And ultimately, we end up with just regular people, just a couple of jerks, just trying to work in this field. I'm sure you bang your head against the wall many a day
Oh yeah.
in your yeah. Um, so yeah, so welcome aboard. So you've been an MVP just I think a little bit longer than I have actually in enterprise mobility. When did you get awarded that?
I think just a couple of months before you, so
Oh, was it?
March 2017.
Oh right, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
God, it seemed
when was yours?
July,
Oh yeah, well then,
same year, yeah,
same year, yeah.
yeah, yeah. It seemed like you'd been on board for quite a while
Well,
at
yeah.
that point.
But look, I mean, you know yourself when you look back at it now, it's like 3 years have passed, and it's like that's almost like a
Yeah,
lifetime. Um,
yeah,
so yeah, it's been good.
yeah. So your enterprise mobility, which is the same program that I'm on, um, and so how did that come about? I mean, obviously, you've been in the community for a while. What kickstarted that?
Yeah, well, for me, I mean, I'll go back to when I joined the company in 2010. My then manager had said to me, if you want to better yourself and become something called an MVP, then we'll do that with you as well and put you on that journey. And at the time, I never even knew what an MVP was. I mean, I just was an IT systems admin focused mostly on like doing Microsoft exams and stuff like that. Um, and it introduced me at the time to Configuration Manager, which was a product I became to obviously love through the years. Um, and I suppose through the kind of me learning more than anything, I started learning bits of PowerShell and bits of scripting and stuff to take out the kind of day-to-day monotony of IT sometimes. So you can focus on something else. It's not so that you can sit there twiddling your thumbs. It's just so that you can actually do something. Um, and I got introduced to this whole area of what we call today the greater IT community online and in particular on Twitter. Uh, I mean, I don't know about you, Paul, but like when you speak to people about people's Twitter usage, it's usually, oh, I go onto Twitter to rant about an airline not refunding my tickets or something. Yeah, but to us in IT, like Twitter is gold. I mean, yeah, if you go off it for a day and go back, the amount of stuff you've missed is incredible. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Twitter was one of those things for me that I resisted. You know, joining it. I joined it, but I didn't use it. I didn't understand it. I didn't know what it was all about. And I'd been using Facebook, and I got bored of Facebook. And then it was really through listening to people in the community saying, "Oh, check out Twitter. Use Twitter." That I went onto it, and it's been, the best tool for, as you say, it's very fluid. Things happen very quickly. But for getting that information, it's brilliant, and for meeting people as well.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I met actually, colleagues, friends of mine, and stuff like that on Twitter. I mean, you know Terence as well. So Terence Beggs, good,
Oh, I know
yeah,
Terence.
good friend of mine. I
Yeah.
I met him on Twitter, and
Okay.
it was actually, I mean, even though you talk about how things things come into line, things line up. Terence introduced me to another friend of his, who then introduced me to Nikolai Anderson, who I run a blog with along with several other people, and Terence is one of them. Um, and just looking through a series of events where I was doing some things myself, and then I traveled to Microsoft Ignite back in 2015 in Chicago, and I met Nikolai there for the first time. Um, and it's all things happen for a reason, and then eventually we set up a blog, we set up a bunch of tools, we ended up working together and stuff like that. Um, but it all came down through just being interactive on Twitter. So it's a strange course of events. Uh, you can see how people make connections online, and it's all about sharing. So you'll go on, and there'll be someone new every day sharing something that they've created. And for me, then at the time, that path to the MVP was just me by myself. I'm just guy from the Midlands in Ireland doing something to make my job easier, and I share it with people, and it made their jobs easier, and it just kind of went from there. Um, and for me, getting to that, you know, MVP recognition or whatever was a kind of a bit of a surprise because, sure, there was some people that nominated me and stuff like that, but there's also all these other people, who you've watched for years and years online, and you put them on a pedestal. And even today, I still find it hard to say, am I as good as that person was, writing the books and everything like that? And it's a strange mix of people that we have.
Yeah, yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, that's the thing. It's you. You rock up to the summit and you go in that room and you go, "What the hell am I doing in this room
Yeah,
with these people?"
I remember the first time. I think I don't know if you were there that first year, maybe not, but um, I remember of Jason Sanders, who's actually just recently left the program and gone to Microsoft. He came over and introduced himself, and I was kind of like semi starstruck at the time as well. These people that you have looked up to, and they're in this room with you. And then the other aspect, of course, is you're in the room with people developing the product. And if you mention something, and they think it's a good idea, it actually ends up in the product, which is just mind blowing.
Yeah, yeah, it's like I say, you kind of go, "Oh, why am I here?" And then you kind of go, actually, you step back and you go, "Well, the amount of work I put into this, I've kind of you've got that recognition, and you think, well, yeah, I did pour a lot of time, a lot of effort into it, so maybe I should be here." Um, but even so, like you say, when someone like Jason comes up and shakes your hand, he did the same to me. He's very friendly. Came up, "Hiya, Paul. Great to see you. Great to meet you." All this, um, and you're like, "Oh wow, okay." I think we probably ended up at the same summit, the first summit. Then I think,
Was it the first one we both went to then in 2018?
yeah,
Oh, was that? Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's one of those moments where you, like you say, you kind of taken back by it. But yeah, so you quickly establish yourself. So you had your own blog. Well, I see your own blog. You were doing it with Terence, I think, wasn't it? Deploy everything. That was yours, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was actually. I started back doing my own one, which was just a plain WordPress site. And the only reason I started doing it actually was someone had mentioned to me, I don't know, who was chatting to at the time, but they'd said, set up a blog because if you're doing something and you find it hard to remember what you've done, say 6 months down the road, you have a problem again, you're going, oh, I fixed that months ago. What was the solution? So I set up my own blog, and then Terence and I were chatting, and we said, do you know what? We'll set up a slightly more polished blog and try to get people onto it. And so we set up deployanything.com, which was a domain that Terence had purchased for quite a while, but just kind of hadn't done much with it. So we put that all together, and we were surprised at the level of interest that we got because within I think it's about the first 3 or 4 months we had 60,000 hits, which on my own personal blog, I mean, I might have had 20,000 over 3 years or whatever, but like I said, I wasn't really aiming at anything. Um, and yeah, it became quite successful quite quickly. And at the time
And why do you think that was then? You've gone from your own little scrappy blog or whatever you say to something a little bit more polished. But why do you think those stats went up? Was that you promoting it more?
Mixture, really. I mean, yeah, we're promoting it more for sure. Um, but then some of the stuff that we were doing on the blog as well, like, I started developing some of the tools that I have at the moment, and I think that kind of drove people towards it. Um, and we were actually getting more people come and join and start blogging as well. Um, and at the time then, myself and Terence were chatting with Nikolai, and I think an element of like real world struggle comes into it. Like we're all parents, and it's like, okay, the amount of free time I have to do this kind of drops, as you're doing family stuff, which is understandable. And sometimes people actually need to consider that as well. That, people online, like yourself as well, we've all got families and we all need that kind of alone time. But we came to this kind of realization, look, many hands make light work and all that. Why don't we just throw everything into the one blog? Um, and Nikolai at the time had quite a large following, so we said, okay, look, it makes sense that we move everything to you. And then we rebranded the whole thing, and we went from um, a WordPress site that was kind of generic enough to something that we felt was a bit more custom looking, and we had a logo and stuff like that. And then it really took off at that stage.
Yeah, I think you were going. You probably still are. The hits were ridiculous. Um, I mean, comparing the stuff I do against the hits you were getting, mine are tiny in comparison. Um, in fact, my hits have gone down in the last year purely because I think content-wise, I haven't had the time to pump things into it. You notice yourself when you're knocking things out very quickly, one after the other. People come to the site, and that gets retained that interest. But you were getting a stupid amount per day, if memory serves. I can't remember. What kind of stats were you getting on a daily basis?
At the moment, we get about 1.5 million a year, but that's because there's like, what is it, there's 6 or 7 of us, or maybe more actually. No, sorry, there's about 9 of us at this stage blogging on the site. Um, but like, yeah, it just went through the roof really. We were amazed when we got over 1 million hits in a year. We've never seen that. And like you said though, if you don't keep it up to date, that's when you see the lull in the figures. But like it's not all about figures too. But there can be times when a new feature doesn't come out for a couple of months and you're waiting on it, and then there's a whole load of new features, and you go through a period where you're doing 6 and 7 blogs in a month. That's just the way it is. But
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the great thing is that you've got different people contributing, so you don't have as much pressure in a way to get content on there. You can spread it.
yeah, exactly. And like everyone has their own strengths as well. So Jan Kettle, who I work with, he does a lot on identity and security on the blog. Um, um, Sandy does a lot of stuff with PowerShell. Um, and then we've got, Terence has done stuff from Teams. Jordan's done some stuff with Power BI. And we've got a good kind of broad mixture of things in there, which I think is important. Like the EMS space itself is quite vast.
Yeah, no, I think it's a nice spread of content for sure, and yeah, there's a good bunch of people on there, and I think pretty much everybody on there is an MVP now. I think Jordan got
Jordan,
added to the program a month ago, didn't he?
he did,
Or
yeah.
this month?
Yeah, it was the 1st of April, wasn't it?
Yeah,
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 which is bad in one way because it was April Fools, but
yeah,
yeah, but of course, it was great in another sense because obviously he got into the program, which is fantastic as
yeah.
well. Um,
You've got to be questioning that email, haven't you? Really, 1st of April. You'd be like, is that real? I
yeah,
mean, I was thinking that when I got it in July, I was thinking, is this real? Oh, Christ. Oh no, it is. Christ.
yeah. That I mean, I remember when I got the email. I'd been on Twitter all day, and I'd been busy in work, and well, busy in work and on Twitter, and yeah, okay. Well, but I'd seen all this stuff happening, like uh, MVP bars and on pictures of all this email and stuff like that. And I think I checked at about 10:30 at night on my personal email, and I saw the same email that everyone else had been tweeting about. And I actually, I actually ran upstairs, and my wife had gone to bed, and I woke her up at the time and says, "Look." So she was obviously massively impressed, and we got up and had a glass
Yeah.
of wine. No, she just went back. She went back to sleep. So yeah, okay.
It's like,
If,
what are you waking me up
yeah,
for?
if you're happy, I'm happy. Whatever.
Yeah. does she um does she kind of go, what is it you do? Does she understand what you do at all?
No, not really. Um, no, and it's difficult as well. I mean, for people like ourselves, IT is our hobby as well as our job. So there sometimes doesn't seem to be like a clear disconnect between you working and you're not working. So from that aspect, sometimes it can be a little bit hard to understand. But she does her
Yeah.
best. She does her best.
Yeah. I mean, my wife says to me, it's 25 years in or whatever. I don't know what it is you do. Let's go. Yeah, don't worry about it. Neither do I at times. So when you were doing this job, that you were kind of encouraged to get involved or whatever. This was 2010. You were saying,
Yeah,
was that you'd been in IT for a while at that point though? Yeah.
yeah. I'd been in IT since around about full time since about '99. So I started off in Dell, um, as quite a lot of people did here at the time. They were a big employer, and I got I got work placement through college. So I went in there, did my 6 months, and they were happy with me, and I was happy with them. So I went back after college, and stayed there for another while. Um, but uh, the the call center thing was great and everything, but at the time I was actually kind of commuting, and what was I doing? About 65 miles each way, across
No,
across a mountainous road. Um,
Cross Island. How long did that take then? That'd be a couple of hours, wouldn't it?
yeah, you'd be talking
Maybe more.
probably around about 2 hours each way, with traffic
Yeah,
and everything. So,
yeah.
uh,
Possibility of tractors
I,
slowing you down, all this stuff. Yeah, animals jumping out.
yeah, I did actually. I had a little skid in the car, during the time of going across that road as well. So there was a couple of things that kind of led me towards saying, is there anything closer to home? And then I knew someone through some earlier kind of work experience, in IT, and he was looking for someone at the time. So I said, yeah, okay, let's get this. And it was literally, 5 minutes up the road in the morning. So it was good. And
Perfect. Yeah, 5 minutes. You can't beat that, can you?
no, and the great thing there was I was going from, say, the help desk, well, I was, when I left there, I was the um, dispatcher and stuff like that, looking after parts and making sure people had done the right diagnostics and stuff. But what I moved out to was very broad, like doing field service engineer type slash consultant type role. Um, and I think that opened up my IT mind to many, many different things. So, the 5 years that I kind of grafted doing that, I think was fundamental to my whole career.
Yeah. So what, you're kind of dabbling in different things.
Yeah, I mean, like you're going from, say, just dealing with, okay, troubleshooting hardware and installing Windows, to setting up Exchange servers, setting up other mail servers, firewalls, routers, everything in between, so that you end up kind of, okay, you mightn't be an expert on absolutely everything, but you understand like the full process from A to Z, and you can do, the kind of jack of all trades type scenario. But with
Yeah, and you get this sort of helicopter view of things as well, don't you? I mean, I've had a job like that where it dabbled in everything,
Yeah,
similar firewall stuff, helping the network guys out. So you got some knowledge. You weren't an expert, like you say, but you knew. And so you could apply that knowledge and understand how it all fitted together.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that serves me well all the way up to today. I mean, I have that breadth of experience that I can understand where logically a problem might be. And being able to talk that through with someone is good rather than just being an absolute, subject matter expert on just one tiny little piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think that sort of grounding really helps for sure. And then, so from there, you kind of did this other job into around 2010, yeah. And is that the one that focused you on the config manager side? And uh, were you kind of dealing with deployment and MDT and all that kind of thing?
Yeah, when I joined that, I mean, I had been dabbling with a little bit of MDT, some Ghost, if we go back that far,
Oh God, yeah,
or
yeah.
Acronis was another product I was using back.
Oh God, yeah, yeah.
But when I joined that company, they had configuration manager in place. Um, and to me, that was kind of eye-opening because I had a comparable solution in the previous employer at the time, which was actually a Dell product by Case Systems at the time.
Case.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
But configuration manager seemed to do a hell of a lot more. But at the time, I think probably the good thing was it wasn't really like the bare bones were set up, but it wasn't doing anything other than patching. I mean, and that's still we kind of you and me as consultants, we've seen that through the years where you go in and you look at configuration manager and it's doing nothing but patching. Um, and then they go, oh well, this looks like it can do a lot more. So I went off and I did my 5 days in a training center with headphones on and that kind of stuff to get the basics. And from there, it was yeah, it was really interesting to get to learn the product in full. Um, I kind of get to that space where at my time, my manager, one of the big things they wanted was the ability to re-image a machine over lunchtime. If anything went wrong, they didn't want IT spending a lot of time in it. Okay, you're going off for lunch? Yes. Okay, come back and your machine
Rebuild.
re-imaged exactly, and it's back to the known good build. So being able to deliver that was the first thing, and then we went from the kind of the XP to Windows 7 migration, ultimately the Windows 7 migration to Windows 10. Um, and as the product matured as well, there was other things got built into it. So, the ability to run PowerShell scripts natively got added in along the way. Um, by which point it was kind of like the world is your oyster, because if you start learning scripting, um, then you can do whatever you really
Do
want.
whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So was your first exposure, was that 2012? Or were you dealing with it in the 2007 days?
Yeah, it was 2007 at the time. Um,
Okay,
yeah, so I actually did a side by side to get up to 2012.
migration.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did it. So my first exposure was for a local council to patch XP to SP3,
Right.
and that's all they wanted it for, and they called it SCOM. I
They
don't know
called it
why.
Scum. Okay.
Yeah, don't know. Anyway, so I was tasked with implementing it, and I didn't have a clue. I'd never touched it. So I had CBT nuggets on one screen, and the screen next to me, my server plugged in and building it, and I had to do two distribution points as well. So none of that was in the CBT nuggets. It was like, okay, build a site server, that's good. Now, how do I get these extra roles in there? How is that achieved? And, you know, struggling through the Microsoft documentation, which wasn't great at the time, to finally get it built. And I got to the point where it's finally done. It was like, okay, don't breathe. No one touch it. If it goes wrong, I don't have a clue. because you're a complete noob at that point. So
Mentioning that noob, I mean, I don't know about you, but like right back then, as you say, the documents weren't great, but like you had sites
mm,
like Windows Noob, I think was someone that was
yeah,
kind of building, and they had a lot of kind of how-tos and stuff like that. Um, and I think those kind of things are are worth their weight in gold.
yeah. Oh God, absolutely. And going back to that, meeting people like Niall at the summit, it was you would go, you'd search online, try and work out what the hell it is you were trying to achieve, try and find the answer, and it could have been on a TechNet questions or whatever, and you'd start to see these names appearing, like Jason's, like Niles, because they helped you through those early days. Now you could. The documentation is fantastic now, so you could use that as a basis for all, and you should be using that as a basis for all your learning because it's there. Um, I mean, the great thing with blogs is that, and I try and do what I'd call an idiot guide. Now, that's not demeaning anyone who's doing it. What I mean is that anyone could pick this up and follow it with a step by step because I like pictures, you know, because I'm looking around going, where the hell is this? I haven't got a clue. I can't find it. And if it's on a picture, I can instantly find that what I want. Um, but yeah, back then it really was. Oh God, what happens if this breaks now? I haven't got a clue. And you know, log files, I didn't even know they existed initially. It was only through things start. That's when you do learn. Things start to go wrong, so you start delving into it and you pick it up more. But yeah, it was it. I know what it's like for any business who puts in something like config manager. That yeah, you could install it very quickly and get it up and running, but then you don't turn things on because you don't know where to start with it. And that's where people like ourselves or people who've got the experience of this who've worked on it for a while can come in and assist. But it's very daunting. I don't know when you saw it, you saw it was patching, and you thought, right, okay, I need to do OSD, for example. I mean, how quickly did you get up and running with that? Did it take a little while to fathom it? With a few, things that you did, you thought, well, actually, I could have done that way better.
Yeah, well, for OSD, I think at the time I was reading books by Johan Mardermark and Michael Neustrom. Um, and following those guides, I think that was going to, if you like, idiot proof, or um, and a lot of automation came out of that. But without reading those books, I mean, I was flapping around in the dark, really. Um, creating the bog standard TAS sequence was fine, but then at the time, we thought that we could integrate this with MTT, and it was actually a friend of mine recommended that I read another deployment series of books by the two guys, and yeah, that kind of took it from there.
Yeah, I remember the first image that I built with Config Manager because we just moved off using Ghost for deployment. So we were kind of always used to that thick image approach.
Hmm.
And we did similar. So we actually built the image on a physical device. This is how awful it is. Um, and then used, I think it's probably ImageX then, it's before DISM, to capture it. Brought it into Config Manager and worked on it that way. But it was kind of really horrible the way it was done. It was one of those things where you go, God, I'd never ever do it like that again.
Yeah, I had the same experience at the very start using ImageX to capture the image, and even building, I suppose a naivety with the product at the time is building um, images to capture on different physical hardware because you're actually capturing all the drivers and everything like that. And yeah, it just worked, but you had maybe 10 different images and they were all quite large in size. And then you get into the kind of a little bit of automation where you can actually automate that process a bit more. And then of course, Hyper-V became very readily available even on your desktop if you had enough power. So you're able then to go down and start using virtual machines, seeing the benefit of that. But I think we've kind of both had the same struggles at the start, where you're just kind of learning as you go along. Um,
Yeah.
and you know, I think
Didn't have a clue. Didn't have a clue what I was doing. So this was like, this is what we did with Ghost. We'll just replicate it.
yeah, but I think unless you go through that process, you don't understand how you got there in the first place. If you were given just a sheet that you just followed to a T and it's got pictures and you do it and it works, that's fine. But if you don't understand the entire process, and where to look when things go wrong, I think that's where the real value comes in.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. You learn from those mistakes, and I mean, I still go to places where they have thick whims, and I just kind of go, okay, it's working for you. I wouldn't really want to do it that way. Just seems like an admin overhead.
Yeah,
Um,
and
but they go, well, we build it in 15 minutes. I go, okay, fine.
yeah, I know.
I can't give you that with a layered on approach. I can't give you a build time that quick. So swings and roundabouts. But I prefer to layer things on these days. It's lessons learned, I think, from doing it in the past.
Yeah, I think so as well. I mean, that's a game thing. Yeah, like you do get a quicker deployment time, but when you're laying stuff in, it's easier to keep those individual components up to date, and that's what I like. And as I said, when I started it, I was very much with the MDT world as well, though, always having integrated task sequences. And more recently than anything, I just gone away from that approach and just gone native in the product because for me, I mean, it's just a personal thing, and I no disrespect to MDT and all the task sequences around the world that use it, but um, you can do so much now natively, or you can do so much through scripting that I actually find it less of an overhead when it comes to handing over like documentation to a client, because instead of a task sequence with 200 odd steps, they've got a task sequence with like 40 or whatever. Um, so from that aspect, I think it looks neater.
Yeah, I can see the benefit there. I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it? Because what a few years ago was everyone was going, okay, let's integrate MDT, and that's the way to go. And now people are saying let's not, and I'm going, no, what's the best way forward, really? Um, Ultimately, at the end of the day, they just want something that works, don't they? And it isn't too complex. Keep it simple. That's the key. Um, I like the way the MDT task sequence gives you different scenarios, so refresh, um, new build, etc. It's all kind of there for you, and already the logic's in place. So I kind of go, okay, if I'm going to be working at a customer where they want potential refresh stuff as well, then we can just go with that as a template. So, but yeah, I mean, there is so much more being added to it. It's trying to keep up. I mean, how does that work for you to, trying to keep up with the product? Do you find that difficult?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, because when we started on this going down this route, it was very much configuration manager, right? And we go back to
Mm-hmm.
2007 or 2017, should I say? It was just config manager. Intune was coming up in the background, but it wasn't really something that we had worked a lot with or had a lot of time for because it was like mobile device management, if you like. But the growth in that side of things, through, as it is today, Microsoft Endpoint Manager, um, that now causes to not only have to keep up with what what's going on in the configuration manager world, but also what's going on in Endpoint Manager and in Azure AD, in the advanced threat protection side of things. So trying to keep up with everything is like almost like a full-time job in itself. And testing, like, if you're not testing in the lab, then you can't test when you're on site with a customer. I mean, that just doesn't work. Um, and some people get away with it, but it's it's not the way to do things.
No, and we're kind of we're again we're back in a privileged position, aren't we? We have that ability to play in Azure, um, and we're not having to spin up new tenants all the time. So we have that, but we have access to things, we get given things, and that sort of thing. But finding the time. I mean, geez, we have TPs every month as well. I was talking with Kim about this the other day. He used to have that battle with Jurgen when the TP came out. Who could light up the lights the quickest? And he says, "Oh no, I've not had a chance to do that for a while." He's pretty much, beaten me to a pulp on that one. But it's finding that time. It is so hard because you have that family life. You have things that you do outside of all this, and you've got your PowerShell scripting for the driver management tool, which I put a tweet out there the other month. This is not his full time job because I can imagine you're getting, it gives you a lot of privilege, pleasure, whatever, to do that and create that tool for people. It has a great response, but yet some people are using it in business and almost are kind of wanting SLAs on it in a way for you to respond and fix things. So people have to be mindful of that because that takes up a lot of your time.
Yeah, I would be the first one to say, um, it's not far from perfect. It started off as a tool that I wrote for myself, and I learned lot of stuff along the way. And probably if I was to redo the whole thing, I would do a lot of sections in it differently. Um, but at the end of the day, like it's I don't know what it is, 9,000 lines of code or something like that. Probably when it's packaged, it's a lot more. But um, to find time to sit down and do all of that from scratch
Mm,
would
yeah,
just
it's
be
not going to happen, is it?
no. I mean, it's not going to happen. But you know, I, I I do my best. I did see some people that for all the best will in the world, yes, they think that you are there just constantly available. And you know, as MVPs, we obviously try to be, but sometimes life gets in the way and we have other stuff to do. Um, I do keep it up to date. And there's a lot that goes in. There's a lot of involvement that goes on outside of what people don't see. Of me actually, I was talking to the OEMs in the background and saying, "Can you do this for me? Can you do?" And they've been very, very good with us. Um, but sometimes some things that don't move as quickly at their end as well, and you're waiting on something, and then people are saying, "Why isn't this happening?" and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I put in a lot of hours, and I'm actually just finishing an update for it now as well. I've added in 7-zip support and a couple of other bits. So
Oh yeah, I saw some chat about that. Well, what to use, what tool to use, what would be right to use for that. So you've ended up with 7-zip, yeah?
yeah, well, I added in zip support because some Johan Addermark actually reached out and he said he'd done some testing with zips and he was getting some really good figures. And he didn't need to care about the single instance storage side of things because the packages were so much smaller. So we added that in, and that's worked out really well. But then, of course, someone else pointed out the fact that 7-zip has higher compression. So um, I said, okay, look, that makes sense as well. So I've just added in the ability that it creates self-extracting 7-zip archives. And I was doing some figures actually only this morning, and I've got like a one driver pack down from it's about 880 odd megs down to like 250, which is smaller than the executable that you download from their site. So it obviously makes sense. So it should be a lot of space saving when people start using it. But it all takes time, and I do as much testing as I can. But mine's a test environment, and it can work there, and it might not work somewhere else. So people then start feeding back the information, and I've recently moved it to GitHub as well. So TechNet has obviously been retired, but with GitHub, then at least I can assign the issue or new feature, whatever, to me, and then just reply back. So I think that might work
So
out really well.
you could even start to get a little, whether you're going to do this or not, you could start to get a community of contributors.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, just start forking off the code, and people can. It's whether I was chatting with a chap called Sam Aaron who does Sonic Pi, it's a music coding tool, and how he has people who do exactly that for him, but he retains that control, and but also makes sure that he understands what's being changed, because ultimately he owns the whole thing. So whether that's an option for you, it just relieves some of that pressure, I suppose.
yeah. No, I definitely want. I want more people to start getting involved in it. The one thing I was concerned about, like over the years, was if someone did something really bad to it or something like that. Trying to build up ultimately its stability, so that companies around the world can use it and that they don't go to it and it doesn't work horribly and stuff like that. So, and of course, then I started packaging it up into an MSI, which requires me to do that. And that's obviously one of the things that like I've seen recently is the tool actually coming up was malware as a virus. And I just Googled the tool just to see where this is coming from, and found a couple of different blog sites around the world who are giving you a download with a free code keygen generator for the tool. So, first of all, point out that it's completely free. You'll never need a keygen, and if you are downloading it from one of those sites, it is
Jesus.
yeah, it's likely to contain malware, and that's why I got affected as well. But I do the MD5 hatches and put them up and all that kind of stuff, so that people can
Yeah.
appease their security departments.
Yeah, definitely. And well, you were looking at code signing as well at one point, weren't you?
Yeah, I'd fuck. Just another thing I have to. I've long fingered for a while. I did go down the route of trying to get a code signing cert, and cut a long story short, that you know the process, right? So they will give you a code signing cert. I'm not going to name companies, but there's one company who will give you a code signing cert. And to do so, you have to set up a call where they're videoing you. And I was traveling quite a lot, and I set up a call, and then I'd have to travel off somewhere else. Um, and this became a bit of a process where we tried to set meetings, and it didn't happen. And then I kept trying to set up meetings, and then it really didn't happen. And then I just kind of gave up. But yeah, I,
So what they wanted to do, they wanted to record you being you or something. Was that it? The video
they
you at a computer.
they wanted to, I think, record me signing the document.
Right.
Yeah, so that they had the face to
Jeez.
match the identification and all that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah.
and okay, I can understand they've got a process, and that's fine. And it's great that they
Yeah.
give out free certs that way. And not knocking that. It's just that me at the time when with trying to get that process to work was just
Yeah.
almost impossible. So
Yeah. Um, so I mean, it'd be a great thing to get though, wouldn't it? It's worth putting that time and effort in. It's finding the time to be able to do that. Because then, obviously, once you've got that code signing, you become a trusted app. Um, After a few downloads, smart screen's not going to moan, all that kind of thing. But you've just got to go through that motion, I suppose.
yeah, well, look, I
Which,
will do it within the next few weeks. I'll get it done.
yeah, make sure you're not sat in your pants while you're doing it. Yeah, smarten yourself up a bit as you record yourself.
Yeah.
So was IT always what you wanted to do, Maurice? Because I can imagine you probably had different plans as a kid. What was your dream job,
The
or did you have one?
dream job. I remember it's probably like every little boy's young dream. I mean, it was to be like a pilot in the RAF. Like a fighter
How many
pilot.
people have said that?
Yeah, yeah,
Jeez, did you have something wrong with your vision? No, normally, it's like, I mean, I've got a lazy eye, so there's no way I'd ever get in for that. I mean, I've got a mate of mine who says lazy eye. That's not all that's lazy. It's like, right, okay.
Yeah, probably my thing. Well, I probably been too short to get in the plane, but no, no. Look,
Yeah,
this
can't reach the pedals.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, can't push
Yeah,
these controls, but
we got a booster seat. No, can you imagine?
um, yeah, I could actually, but yeah, like but then I remember, I think I was about 7 years old, and I got gifted a Sinclair Spectrum at the time. And that was kind of like, these are what computers are. And I think I'd actually been asking for computers for a while, which I don't know why. I maybe had
So hold on. So you're about 35, yeah? 35.
no, well,
So
40 this year.
oh, you're 40 this
Yeah,
year, yeah. So okay, you were given one in about 1987. Jeez,
yeah, yeah. The old
God,
Sanyo cassette player connected up to it, and you sit there for about 4 minutes waiting for a game to load.
yeah.
But
Couldn't they have got you the latest tech, like an Amiga or something? Spectrum, Jesus.
don't knock the Spectrum. I love that thing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. No, I had a Commodore 64, so I had the slightly better of the two
yes.
computers.
Oh, look at that. Look, rivalry. There's always that great
Yeah,
rivalry. Oh, do you have a Sinclair? Do you have a Commodore?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, that
So
was.
that got you started then. Was that just playing games? Was it mucking about, or did you actually type stuff in?
I did actually type a bit of code in. I remember at the time there was it was one of these kind of encyclopedia type things. It was called Quest. And it contained, useful facts about all the stuff around the world. But they had one section on computers, and they just happened to give you it was like, I think, an A3 sheet of code that you could type in for a database system. And I remember sitting there, and there was no kind of saving the file off to a notepad or anything like that. This was like typing in. If you made a mistake, you made a mistake, start again. Um, and I remember doing that whole thing, and then looking at the code and going, oh, I could customize it here and customize it there and change the colors, and that kind of, I suppose, got me started on things. Um, and I went from the Sinclair Spectrum, then I suppose then you kind of, when you're hitting tens and twelves and up to 13s, it's back to the games console. But after a while, then I remember. I had a couple of different computers. I think IBM PS2 was the first kind of PC that I had. Um,
So were you doing games consoles then? Were you in the
yeah, I
90s?
was. Yeah,
So what was yours then? What was your favourite?
let's say
SNES?
Sega Mega Drive.
Oh, Mega Drive. Good, right? Okay, yeah. We always used to think the SNES was a load of rubbish. Um, I mean, to be honest, so I was at university when you were a teenager, when you were 10 or 12, um, and Amiga. I had my Commodore Amiga. That was the thing. We were playing Mortal Kombat, Secret of Monkey Island, all this stuff. And then a mate of ours who was living with us bought a SNES. We were mocking it, but he had Mario Kart.
Oh yeah, that was brilliant.
And oh Jesus, still play it now with a mate. It's like we'll hook up on it and play it because it's just classic, really. But I love the Mega Drive. I was a big Sonic fan. Um, Sonic 1 and 2, and there's a few other games on there I played. But I don't know what was your go-to game on that then?
Go-to games. I mean, I had a lot of different ones.
Echo the Dolphin.
Echo, yeah, yeah, that was it. Echo the Dolphin.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that kept me going for hours.
no, probably I think it was Sonic at the time, but then a lot of the kind of car racing games, stuff like that. I mean, I used to love that stuff because
What like the ones where you go in, the track's coming towards you type, or top down.
no, the track is coming towards you, kind of F1 style, in the cockpit and stuff like that. I'm a bit of a petrol head at heart, so and I remember was Colin McRae Rally. That was a great one at the time.
Oh yeah, crikey, yeah. God, I remember that. Yeah, we listen to this. This is pretty sad. We played Jeff Crammond's Formula One on the Amiga. That was a simulation game, and you could play the whole track. Yeah, so you could do Monaco, 80 laps. So you'd be playing it for like 4 hours or whatever it is they take to drive around in real time.
I had that. They went through a series of a few different ones, didn't they? I think um there was like obviously number two, number three, number four, whatever it was. But
Yeah,
yeah, I remember, and you could fine tune everything about the car, suspension and steering and everything.
yeah. Get really geeky with it.
Yeah, yeah. But
We had a copy of it because we couldn't afford the real thing, being students, and it had the copy protection at the start. So we used to type in. You had to look in your manual to find the word that
oh
it said.
yeah.
Look at page 78, paragraph 3, line 4. Type in the word, and we used to type in tires until we got in. I think after 3 goes, it rebooted. Eventually, we got sick of that. I photocopied the whole manual off someone.
Oh no way. I've completely
Yeah,
forgot about that copyright protection.
yeah.
Yeah.
Where it gets even sadder is like you could set up races and you could have multiplayer, and if the person wasn't so you could have 6 people, for example, and this is a really sad story. You could split it. So so it would go, okay, this is an 80 lap race, and therefore player one will be racing for a certain amount of time, player two for a certain amount of time, and you would go and do your bit, and then the computer would take over yours, and it'd be the next person then who would then take control of the joystick and carry on. We did a play by mail version of this. So we'd do our bit and then send it off to someone's house via mail.
What?
They'd carry on. Yeah. Yeah. Oh dear. We didn't get very far with that. I don't think we actually finished a full race, but it went to like Manchester, all over the country. The rule was that you had to do your go and you couldn't redo it. Yeah, whatever. I'm sure a few people took the mick on that one. But such was you're talking about. It's just sad, isn't it? Like you say, it takes four minutes to load a game back in the day with the old tapes,
Mm.
and we didn't have the internet, so this was our version of internet gameplay. We just did it via the real post system.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of internet, I don't know about you. Like, I remember being in school, secondary school at the time in England, and they the one of the computers had this new thing called a CD-ROM drive. And they had was it Encarta, Microsoft Encarta at the time? Do you remember?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And this was
So
this was
that was the
incredible.
original internet,
Oh
wasn't
yeah,
it?
it's the internet on a CD.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Everything's there.
yeah, exactly. So that was like the first kind of thing. Oh wow, you can learn so much stuff about this, and and then I think it was like 97 or something before I actually got to see what the internet was. The school actually, I being the geek guy who knew stuff about computers, I installed the internet for the school. Um, but yeah, like yeah,
Just going to install the internet.
yeah,
Yeah, 1 minute.
hold on, it's here. I have it. It's on a disk. I'm just installing it.
It's in my pocket.
Yeah, and there's this thing I have to connect to the computer. I don't know what that's about, but it makes things happen. Um, and yeah, it was on like an old 9.6K modem or something like that. It
Oh
was
God, yeah. Or was
crazy.
it connecting through AOL or something like that?
It was actually, I was part of some educational thing where I used to get into college, and you then get presented with the Netscape browser.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, so and then of course you have great web pages that basically say like "Hello World" and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah,
A lot different to the way kids have things today, for sure.
yeah. I did. My first exposure to the internet was via my first IT job, and we got these CompuServe um, floppies or CDs. I don't remember. And you joined up, and you got your CompuServe address, which was like something like 7 digits. So it'd be your address would be 7467853 at CompuServe.com, and that was your email.
I remember them.
It was like, yeah. And then it was like, oh, everyone's on AOL now, and all this rubbish. And but yeah, let's download some RAM files because that's the old real audio. We'd stream some music, real horrible bit rates and that, and but this, you had to start somewhere, didn't it? I
Yeah,
suppose these cranky old modems.
like you were talking about those kind of CompuServe and AOL days. Like, do you remember buying the kind of IT books on the shelves at the time? And they'd have like a CD, and it would have 600 of the worst applications you could ever install on your PC, and you'd install them
Yeah,
all, and your
yeah,
machine with the promise of being super fast and everything afterwards would be virtually unusable.
yeah.
Um,
You'd used up all the 20 megs on your hard disk.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and no benefit whatsoever. And
No.
I actually remember getting a CD off of one of them and had a distribution of, I think it was called Mandrake Linux at the time or something. And Linux was this thing, an alternative to Windows. I thought, I'll throw it on. I'll repartition the drive, right? And I'd started dabbling in a little bit of web design at the time, and I'd done a couple of web pages for a few people. Nothing backed up, of course. Like the cloud wasn't a thing back then, and you know, and got this CD, put it in, and it said it'll repartition your disk, and you know, it only needed a small partition for Linux, and it basically wiped the entire drive. And in next month's release of the magazine, there was a disclaimer saying, if you have last month's edition, don't install Mandrake Linux. There was the bug. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
thanks very much.
30 days too bloody late. Thanks.
Yeah. Um,
God, yeah, yeah. But we were all dabbling in web design around then, weren't we? I think you know you could faff around with front page. Netscape had its what was it called? Netscape. Oh God, I can't remember. There was some kind of freebie that you got with Netscape where you could create Netscape Composer. I think that was it, where you could build web pages, or you could start, really getting into the code side of it. Um, I ended up doing a website, and I got some work out of it in the end, um, because it got seen by someone who decided, yeah, this would be great. And at one point, I even thought I was going to go into web programming. This was like the early noughties, and come out of IT support, but I just didn't know what I was doing ultimately. It was a bit of a hobby. I mean, I go on WordPress now, and it's like it's clicking blocks and stuff in it, so it's fairly simple. Whereas then it was, oh, now we're going to have to create a CSS style sheet and all this kind of thing. I just thought, nah, it's too much. I'm not a programmer really. I try. No, it's like the PowerShell stuff. Um, I'm no expert at all. I did actually create a tool for Config Manager, but I was working with Microsoft at the time, and unfortunately, I couldn't release it because it was their IP. But it was one of those things where, it's like, I wouldn't say it'd be anywhere near the tool that you've done, but I'd started doing it and I learned a lot through doing that. But I could rebuild it from scratch, and I couldn't use that code. I could start it again. It was used to import and export task sequences from Config Manager, so it had some real beneficial use if you were, if you got like a dev, test, prod environment. You could like quickly export out and ping it into your new one. Um, but I've just never got back round to it, and it'd be one of those things that might be good for the community, but like you're saying with your tool, would you start that all over again? No, because you probably learned a hell of a lot through doing it. But to start again
yeah,
would be,
I
you know,
think we applied it with everything. I mean, you do a task sequence. If you look at a task sequence you did 2 years ago, you'd probably do it completely different today. Like you can almost do stuff better tomorrow, and looking back at things retrospectively is easy, but it's how you learn, I think.
yeah, yeah, definitely learn from your mistakes. And that's what goes back to that original config manager build that I did. It's like everything's working now, don't touch it. But then you kind of want things to go wrong
Yeah,
because you want to learn, why does that not work? And that sort of thing. So you weren't going to be a pilot then. So that failed. So what was the next choice for you? What were you working towards, or were you said you came out of college and ended up pretty much work experience with Dell, straight in with them. But had you got any plans to do anything else?
I don't think so. No, I mean IT was kind of everything I really knew. Even you know, I, even in school, I was never the most academic. yeah, even today, with IT, I'm one of those people. I class myself as just digging into a product. I like to just immerse myself in it and try to figure everything out myself. And not one for looking at documentation straight away. I'll go back and read it and make sure fill in all the gaps I've missed along the way. Um, but yeah, but school was especially after kind of what we had the junior cert here. So kind of midway through your secondary school. I'd been
What's that then?
Yeah, so junior cert probably like GCSE or something like that. It's
Okay, right.
and after that point, you're going into what I think you have A levels. It's at the end of school. Um, Going up to what we have the leaving cert here. Um, I was making money doing websites and stuff like that, and I kind of given up a little bit. Um, and unfortunately, my grades at that school suffered because of that, because I just didn't have the interest in learning a lot of the subjects I was doing. And unfortunately, I think, someone said it, you need physics for computing. And I'm sure, yes, absolutely, you do need physics for chip design and stuff like that. But for me,
Mm.
IT, I was never going down that path of it. And there are many different paths to IT. And I was doing physics and I just hated it and stuff like that. But I got through it and then got out the other side and ultimately went to college. But for me, like it was always just IT. It was just I just had a great interest in it.
That was the dream.
Yeah, yeah. Now living the dream 24/7.
Living it, yeah. So did you say you studied it in England, secondary school?
Yeah, so I was in England until about 92-ish or something like that. So you did like the first year of secondary school in England earlier than you did it in Ireland. So when I moved to Ireland, I had to do first year again. So that was interesting. But
Okay, so were your parents living in England when you were younger then,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then you moved back?
yeah.
Right. Okay.
I grew up in London, and we moved.
Oh, that's where the accent's from. Yeah, thought so.
Yeah, a little bit now and again.
A Cockney accent. Yeah.
Cockney. Yeah, well,
All right, mate.
yeah,
All that.
well, I actually was a Cockney, believe it or not, but yeah, so a long time ago.
Yeah, bit like the guys on Snatch, were you that type of Cockney?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so you grew up here and then moved back. Parents moved back home, did they?
yeah. We moved back to Ireland then, and yeah, it was a completely different culture shock. I mean, coming from London to small town in Ireland, but like, I wouldn't change it. I mean, I don't know anything about where like London or anything like that, but I just enjoy the quieter life, and it is certainly quieter over here, less pressure, and
So whereabouts in London then?
I grew up in Stepney Green.
Oh right, yeah, right in the heart of the East End, yeah,
Exactly, yeah. So,
just round the corner from the Craze.
yeah, yeah, that's Mile End, isn't it? Or Whitechapel.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
Whitechapel, yeah, yeah,
yeah, I know. I've been back to visit there since. It, in some ways, not a lot has changed, and in other ways, it has. But I mean, I still like London. It's great to go and visit. But for me, I just prefer the quiet life, and
yeah. Get in, get out, yeah,
yeah, and I'll take living in the country any day.
yeah. Excuse me, I think that's where we first met as well. It's a W Mug event.
That's right.
No, it wasn't yeah,
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 it
it
was.
was a
Yeah,
W Mug event. Yeah,
one
yeah,
in Paddington back in the old.
yeah. And I thought you were Sean Mahoney.
That's right, Shamani. Yeah.
I got his name wrong, have I? Is that the Irish
Yeah,
pronunciation?
it's the
Sorry.
pronunciation. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Is that correct, Maurice?
No, yeah,
I'll
don't
get it
don't
wrong.
even go there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, we met and I got you mistaken for some reason. Sean was next to you, but you'd come over for the event. Effectively, you'd flown across just to watch. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's that community thing. Okay, well, there's not a lot of events that we're running in Ireland, so I had W Mug and I went across, saw yourself, Robert, and the rest of them, and
Is
yeah,
that the first time you met Terence then as well?
it, no, No, because I'd met Terence
Right.
prior to that it was an Irish one. I forget, it was a tech camp or something like that. I can't
I was
remember.
going to say, was it in an Irish bar?
It wasn't an Irish bar. No, it was actually one where they had Niall Brady was across where he was presenting at it.
Okay.
They ran it for like 2 years or something, and it was good, but I don't know, it just stopped then. Yeah, but so then I met Terence at that, and then we went across, and he introduced me to the guys in WMUG, and
Yeah.
sat in and learned some great things as well, and great speakers coming. So,
Do you remember what I presented on that day?
oh dear God, I I know
Neither
you
do
I
I.
know you talked about Raspberry Pi at one.
Oh, was it that one? Right. Okay.
What,
Yeah.
what?
So was that the one when me and Peter made a little light flash on a Raspberry
Oh,
Pi?
it wasn't that now. No,
No.
it,
Oh,
it,
you missed out on that.
it was the only thing I really remember about it was it was the one where you can even admit yourself the demo gods were not kind to you. Do you remember there was one day where just everything went wrong?
That could be pretty much any of my presentations, mate. Seriously, they never go well. Yeah. I don't know. I think the worst one I had was we presented in a basement to a hotel. This is when Microsoft had stopped using the rooms at Paddington, and I I tried to connect to the internet. It was kind of web based, Azure based, whatever. And I couldn't get onto the internet. And then Sam Erskine popped out because I've got this little 4G thing. You can use that and all these kind of things. We thought it was the hotel Wi-Fi, and it's just a disaster. I couldn't do it, and I said, "Oh, this is what would have happened." And then when I got home, I thought, "Oh God, I've left the DHCP running on my lab." And so my laptop had grabbed an address from my internal lab and then couldn't get out. And I just thought, you idiot. But I have, yeah, I record all my demos now because it, it's just easier. It's less stress.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Something to fall back on is always good because inevitably some
yeah,
things will come and bite you.
yeah, screenshots, whatever it is you need to get you through it. And because we've done a few webinars together now as well. We did two, is it two together?
Yeah, it's
Um,
two indeed. Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
with Adaptiva. And how do you find those? I mean, is presenting your thing?
yes and no. I still find it a bit of a alien experience. Um, and sometimes it's hard to come across, presenting what you know, in a media like that. Um, but I think you have to engage and challenge yourself like that. Um, and if we don't have people, you know, blogging, vlogging, etc., well then the message is lost. Like we're just looking at text-based documents. So
Mm,
I like it, and I enjoy doing it with someone else that I can bounce off. And we've had good experience with that. And the ones that we've done, we've worked well together. So um, yeah, I think that's important. That the two people that are doing it are very similar in their approach.
yeah, I mean, we get good feedback on it. And I mean, you know what I'm like before. You hear me bricking it all the time. You seem a bit more chilled out than me. And you're going, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. I'm going, oh, yeah. That's just how I work. I just have to go through that, I think, beforehand. I think I'm getting better with it. Um, I did a session with Rob Marshall back in January at the last WMUG. Was it January? Crikey, yeah, yeah, it was. I'm just trying to think last time I actually left the house because of this the coronavirus. So yeah, we actually had a physical meetup in January, and and that went well. And it was one of those things where didn't have much time to prep, and so I cobbled together some slides, and we just rolled with it on the day. And I actually felt less pressure doing that than ones where I've really poured a lot of time and effort into. So yeah, so if you find you're presenting with me again, Maurice, and I've done nothing, don't worry.
Okay,
It's all under control.
you're better prepared that way.
Yeah, yeah, it works better for me, I think. But yeah, I have those moments beforehand where I'm just thinking, why the hell am I doing this?
Yeah.
What's the purpose here? Do you get that, or is that just me?
But I don't get what is the purpose, but I do suddenly
Well,
realize.
not that. Do you know what I mean? It's more like, what the hell am I doing this for?
Well, yeah, no, no. What I do, when you're doing presentations and stuff like that, is when you're doing the build up to them, you think, okay, I have to put everything down on a slide deck and stuff like that. And then you start presenting it and you realize just got way too much on screen. It's like yourself, less is more. And that's probably where I do fall down a little bit sometimes. That I try to get too much information on the screen rather than the people that I remember listening to are good storytellers. And I think if you get the audience engaged in the story, they'll remember a hell of a lot more than just, yeah, 10 points on a PowerPoint slide deck. So that I think I have to become better at. And I was actually looking at doing some speaker training as well to kind of help me along that route. And we're basically through all of us in the company that I work for at the moment, we're looking at kind of doing that stuff. So yeah, maybe you get better with time, but I mean it's always nice. I mean, I always find it good to talk, and in general, like people are kind of good with feedback, and they say that they didn't learn, they didn't know such a thing beforehand. So if they're picking up little snippets of it, that's all good.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is that it sounds like you do similar to me, where you want to give everyone all the information,
Yeah,
cover everything in that topic, so they've got, but you can't in that time frame, can you? So you've got to cut, you've got to adapt it. And going back to that one I did in January, I just had a few bullet points, and we were really time constrained there. So because we shared the session, similar to when we do the stuff together, you've only got so long. So you've really got to pick out the bits that you want to do. So where you would normally do maybe 50 minutes by yourself, you'd suddenly do in 20, 25 minutes. And you can fill 10 minutes just talking the intro, can't you? Just getting going. So you've got to kind of get straight to it. So I found just by having 4 bullet points, maybe, that was enough for a conversation for that particular topic, and I could just move on to the next thing. So yeah, it's a tricky one, because the last thing you want is someone giving you the nod to 50 minutes, and you're like, I'm only a third of the way through. Yeah. So what's next for yourself then, Maurice? Have you got more things lined up?
well, actually, yeah, I mean, we are just finishing off a redesign and renaming of the blog as well. So the
Okay.
I think the blog is
Are
going.
you allowed to say what it is yet, or is that on?
Probably not.
Is that an
I,
NDA
I,
thing?
I,
Okay.
I'll probably be get some
Get your ass kicked
yeah,
for saying that. Yeah.
nasty messages from a few people. But
Yeah. Gits.
yeah, yeah,
Come on. What is it? No, you're all right. Don't worry.
yeah, it's to do with the whole name change, that we saw there at Ignite. But that's all I'll say for now.
I did register ghostmentor.com at one point.
Ghost Mentor, oh Jesus
Well,
Christ!
because it was someone, because they were saying, oh, what about Ghost? Can't you do stuff about Ghost? So I did a blog, ghostmentor.com.
Well, actually, do you know what? Just for the laugh, and this was actually just something for the MVP summit a couple of summits ago. But there was another blog site which they used to do a lot of reading. I still do as well. System Center Dudes. Um,
Yeah.
and I registered intunedudes.com just to have it.
Oh, no.
But look, I mean, in typical fashion, anyway. My wife is actually looking at me now because she's got the dinner on the table.
Oh,
Uh,
is she? Oh, my God. Right, so we'll keep talking for another hour. That should be all right. Won't annoy her.
there don't come any awkward silences later whatsoever. Um,
Yeah, so you're effectively telling me to shut up now, and that we should wrap up for this particular podcast. Yeah.
yes, I think that's gonna, life
Right.
life gets in the way.
So for anyone who's listening, I did try and find out the new name of the website. That failed miserably, and now Maurice has got his tea on the table. So we'll have to wrap up. thanks for taking time out, Maurice, on a very holy day in Ireland, Easter Monday. And it's a holy day, well, across the world, isn't it, really? So, yeah, cheers for doing that. And yeah, hopefully we'll get to do some more webinars together because I enjoy doing them
Yeah, anytime, Paul.
with you. Sorry, I forgot to add that bit at the end. So yeah, thanks ever so much for joining us, and take care of yourself, mate, during this coronavirus mess. Stay safe,
Yeah, you too.
and
And hopefully we get to meet up face to face in the not too long distant future.